warmongers and sex predators. Bill Clinton, who was kind of the incognito one of the three because he has a lot of baggage, the Epstein stuff. And then, like, recent baggage, I should say. They all have baggage, and he's the one who is the sex predator of, if you're talking about the phrasing on the graphic. And then you have the genocider in the middle. He's fundraising for a genocide. And then you have the warmonger on the far right, the guy who has his drone civilian kill rate is something like 90 in the high 90 percentile. That's who that is, that warmonger, the war criminal. So those are the three who had an event the other day. We're going to read about the event and then get back to some more video. But let's first start out with this article here. And the headline reads, Biden, Obama, and Clinton defend U.S.-Israeli slaughter of Palestinians at record $26 million fundraiser. That's the headline. All right, so let's read, and I'm not going to bring up the article on their website, but I did take out the snippet that I want to talk about, and let's read. Despite a massive police presence outside and heavy security inside the hall, however, the party tops and their billionaire backers could not conceal the reality of mass opposition to Biden and his partner in crime, war crimes. And I'm going to read that again, but basically, no matter how cable news and everybody's trying to paint this as some sort of almost like a gala, like a social event, like, and it was all, laughs and smiles, that's not at all. Even with them even calling out, saying that there was protests there, they're not really covering the amount of times there were protests at this event. They're not really covering it in detail. But let me read that again. Despite a massive police presence outside and heavy security inside the hall, however, the party tops and their billionaire backers could not conceal the reality of mass opposition to Biden and his partner in war crimes, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, especially among young people. Hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters rallied in the rain outside of the mid-Manhattan venue, demanding an immediate ceasefire and end to the mass murder of innocent civilians in Gaza, which is being carried out by bombs, bullets, and guns and tanks supplied by the United States. The same day as the New York fundraiser, the International Court of Justice warned of a famine in Gaza and demanded that Israel stop blocking food, water, and other vital aid from entering the besieged enclave. Inside Radio City Music Hall, the Democrats sought to present a festive atmosphere. The event was hosted by comedian Mindy from The Office, I don't know how to say, Colleen, who joked about being in the midst of, quote, so many rich people, end quote, performing for the crowd of 5,000 were celebrity Biden endorsers Queen Latifah, Lizzo, Ben Platt, Cynthia Erivo, and Lee Michelle. I don't know the last 3 or 4 people there. I know up to Lizzo. But let me continue with the article. The main event was a 3-way interview with Biden, Obama, and Clinton, conducted by late night TV host Stephen Colbert. However, the discussion was interrupted multiple times by individual protesters in the audience who stood up and denounced Biden as a war criminal, quote, with blood on your hands, end quote. And we saw that quote live on a video that we played, and were immediately removed by security. Clinton and Obama categorically defended Biden's policy in Gaza and declared their support for Israel, the Israeli state. When a protester interrupted Obama, the former president snapped back. Quote, "You can't just talk and not listen. That's what the other side does," end quote. And I want to stop here and break this down because I mentioned this before. You can't just stop and not listen. We cannot listen to a Nazi, which is the same thing as a Zionist. Obama is here to confuse people to pretend like there's two sides to genocide. There is not two sides to genocide. But this is what this, let's call him the eloquent Negro, does best. This is why he's here. The black Negro getting upset, displaying black anger. In this instance, never here seeing this black anger in any other instance, but to prop up the state. This is what makes him a Negro servant. Using your, I'm going to make up a word, Negroism and any sort of benefit that comes from that to prop up this system. But anyway, before I get on I was just about to go on a tangent. Let's stay here with the article. Biden responded to the protesters by repeating the official justification for ethnic cleansing and Nazi-style mass murder of Palestinians, that Hamas was to blame for the war and Israel had a right to defend itself. Self-defense. We need to start saying no, they don't. Israel does not have a right to self-defense, and Israel does not have a right to defend itself. That's international law. An occupying force does not have a right of self-defense. With unbounded cynicism, he said there were too many innocent victims, Israeli and Palestinian, equating the hundreds of Israeli killed in the October 7th incursion by Hamas following nearly 2 decades of blockade and military attacks by Israel, with the more than 32,000 Palestinians killed to date by the Israeli Defense Forces. That's why I say I don't give a fuck. October 7th is not the point anymore. Sorry. When you bypass 5,000 dead people, that went out the window. Because you killed the same amount, then you doubled that, then you tripled that. That's it. It's time to tap out. Whatever retaliatory measures you were taking, that was it. Everything above that, and this is just a number I'm pulling out of the sky. It's not a literal number I'm saying to use. It's a number I put. But after a certain threshold, whatever that threshold is, this is above and beyond. But let me finish out the article, and then we can bring up the other one. He then made clear his full support for Israel, saying, quote, "It's understandable Israel has such a profound anger and Hamas is still there. You can't forget that Israel is in a position where its very existence is at stake." This is the part they want to say you need to listen to. This is it. In no way is this a discussion where a policy is movable. All they're doing is saying the same thing over. This is not a discussion. This is why you don't need to sit and listen to them. Like Obama says, no, we don't. You're not movable on your policy stance of supporting Israel. So what am I going to hear you say the same shit over in a different way? No. So don't fall for that trap that, oh, you won't listen. No, I don't need to listen to a Nazi who wants genocide. When did that start being the thing? But this is what they want you to listen to. Listen to this quote again. "It's understandable Israel has such a profound anger and Hamas is still there. You can't forget that Israel is in a position where its very existence is at stake." They want you to be quiet and listen to that nonsense. Speaking of Israeli Jews, he added, "They weren't killed, they were massacred." That's weird that taking your high number when you were lying about the soldiers and adding them to civilian death, when you said it was like 1,500, taking that high number and taking this low number in this article that says 32,000. Are we serious? Like, you're talking about 20 some odd times the amount of people? It's just not serious that you're still talking about October 7th. It's not serious, in my opinion. You're still talking about hostages. Bro, we are at 32,000. Shut up. You're at 32,000. And that's a low number, according to that article. It's more like 100,000 that they're at. So, of course, the nonsense of this fundraiser was met with this protest, and it's keeping the Democrats very afraid because they literally don't know what to do to like sort of satisfy without, because they're not changing policy. So let's get back into the actual event, and we're going to go to Democracy Now! To get a little bit more foundational background for this discussion.
Now.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Pro-Palestine protesters disrupted the largest one-night fundraiser in presidential campaign history here in New York yesterday. The star-studded event at Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan featured President Biden alongside former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, raised over $25 million for Biden's re-election campaign. More than 5,000 people paid to attend, with tickets costing up to $500,000 each. For $100,000, guests could get a picture with the 3 U.S. presidents taken by the renowned photographer Annie Leibovitz. Celebrities in attendance included Queen Latifah, Mindy Kaling, and Lizzo. The main event was an onstage conversation with the 3 U.S. presidents, moderated by late-night talk show host Stephen Colbert. But just 10 minutes into their conversation, Biden was talking. Protesters began disrupting the event, calling on the president to stop arming Israel and to call for a ceasefire in Gaza.
We had no president on January the 6th. There was an insurrection.
Shame on you, Joe Biden! Shame on you! Shame on you! You are genocide in Palestine, and no amount of full concern that you do will change the billions that you are doing! Out the door. There's blood on your hands! One right here. Blood on your hands!
Permanent victory in Palestine.
For people watching the home, excuse me, Mr. President. For people who are watching home on TV, you may not be able to hear the protesters who, hold on a second here.
You talk about the innocent death of Palestinians. How dare you talk about the innocent death of Palestinians? Palestinians are dying right now because of your actions. Palestinians are dying right now because of your actions. Because of what you're doing. Because of the things that you're doing. Blood is on your
Shame. Stop brutalizing him. Stop brutalizing him.
The protesters were all physically escorted outside. The event disruption was organized by a coalition including Adla Justice Project, Palestinian Youth Movement, and Jewish Voice for Peace, and the Sunrise Movement. Meanwhile, outside the event, thousands took to the streets to protest President Biden's support for Israel's assault on Gaza. Protesters gathered at Bryant Park and marched up to Radio City Music Hall. Democracy Now! Was there and spoke to some of the protesters about why they were there.
Currently, we are working on the Leave It Blank New York campaign for the upcoming primary happening April 2nd on Tuesday. We are asking people to leave it blank because there is no uncommitted option in New York City. So we rather tell them to scan their ballot as is, and that will then count as uncommitted to show Genocide Joe that we are not going to stand while we watch our brothers and sisters being genocided.
My name is Jenna. I am a first-generation American Palestinian, and we have had enough. My family's voted Democrat for as long as we've lived in the U.S. It's heartbreaking. we feel guilty and we feel awful. I feel like I voted for my own people's genocide. And I'm done letting Democrats get away with it just because we're scared of the alternative.
My name is Karina Garcia. I'm running for Vice President of the United States with my comrade Claudia de la Cruz, and we're running with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And we're here today as we've been through all of these protests for Palestine because we understand that our government is orchestrating this genocide, that without their support, without their financing, Israel could not be doing what they're doing to the Palestinian people. And it's important for us to come together and not allow these war criminals like Biden or Clinton or Obama to just use these moments to be in New York City to raise money. The people are waking up and they're seeing that the Democratic Party is where hope goes to die. And that the people have to build a new government for the working class, for the people of this country, that we cannot allow them to drag us into the 1800s, drag us into a nuclear war.
You know, the fact that we had access to watching a genocide in real time, and we were able to see for ourselves that these people are liars, that everything that they have told us about Palestine and about the Middle East has been a lie, means that we are able to make, and also we're able to make the connections. Young people are able to make the connections between what's happening in Palestine, what's happening to migrants in the U.S., what's happening to queer and trans people in the U.S., and we are saying free Palestine, people over profit, and an end to U.S. imperialism everywhere.
Anybody who sees this, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, you have to take part in this. You cannot be silent. Everyone must become involved. There are lives being lost. There are pregnant women being run over by tanks. This is abominable. We cannot learn about the Holocaust and watch movies about the Holocaust and then say, oh, well, you know, I would have done something then. You have to do it now. It's like Aaron Bushnell said, what would you be doing during those times? You're doing it now. So if you don't like what you're doing, if it's not enough, change it.
Voices from outside.
That was great. And the reason I wanted to play that because it wasn't any real reporters, are just on the ground. What people, you know, at the event, when I say the event, the protest part of this, of what we're talking about as far as the event, was saying on the outside. We saw what they were saying on the inside on the stage, and then we saw what they're saying on the outside. I'm going to play that one too. Here's more on the inside. This is Sabby just pointing to this, pandering to black votes, and that's because that's who they had, Lizzo. Now, I must say, I don't know Lizzo's music. I've been lucky enough to be able to dodge it, so I don't know it. So, but let's play. It's only 19 seconds, but this is Lizzo at the event. To go back inside, we went outside. Let's go back inside the event for more footage.
Radio City Music Hall! We got 3 presidents in the building tonight.
3 war criminals in the building.
So everybody, clap your hands!
Let's clap your hands for genocide. Clap your hands for dead babies. Clap your hands for 37 mothers killed on average. Now let's go to this video here. This is Nina Turner. And Nina Turner is brought on, I think this is a conservative network. But she's brought on, this is a 1-minute clip to talk about what's happening at the fundraiser. So let's listen.
The Biden campaign says they raised $25 million at this fundraiser, breaking records. Does this show the party is rallying around President Biden despite the protests outside of Radio City?
Oh, it's an illusion. I mean, the people in that room are rallying around this president, and there's nothing surprising about that. That's par for politics. But in the streets, there's a whole different story. And I think that's what my party is missing. They are really out of touch. And to show a callous indifference to what is happening in Gaza to Palestinians is really going to hurt this president. There's a recent poll that shows that 75% of Democrats, the voters, the coalition that got President Biden to the White House in 2020, disapprove of the military actions in Israel and about 60% of independents. So while in the suites, things seem sweet, in the streets, that is not the case. People are reeling from economic pains, and it just really shows that this party is out of touch.
So that's Nina Turner. We have critiques for Nina Turner from time to time, and I must, admit that I'm probably the softer one on Nina than everybody here at the network. But we have critiques, but when she does make points, I do want to shout that out. So this is a great point that she makes, but she still refers to it as her party, which is the problem. So I found the video. I did say that I saved it on the main account, and I always do that. I get the main account mixed up with my own account. So I saved it in the bookmarks on the main account. So let me go to that, and it speaks to Lizzo. You remember the video of Lizzo singing, pumping up the three presidents? He includes that, a critique of that in here. So let's listen to this from Midwestern Marx Institute.
So there was recently a fundraising event at Radio City Music Hall in New York that featured not one, not two, but three war criminal presidents. And the event started with a concert by the establishment's favorite musician, Lizzo. I guess these presidents heard the story about her mistreating her workers, and they were like, let's go. That's our girl. She'll definitely be down to do a genocide fundraiser.
We got three presidents in the building tonight. That sounds like a
Party to me. 1 million people in Gaza are on the brink of famine. Sounds like a party to me. Biden using our taxes to send Israel more warplanes so they can take the lives of another 10,000 children. That's a party to me. Raising money for the guy who destroyed Libya, the guy who destroyed Gaza, and the guy who carpet bombed Serbia. That's a party to me. I mean, it's really wild to juxtapose what our politicians and rich people are doing here in America as they are actively facilitating the starvation of little babies in Gaza. All facilitated by this man, Joe Biden, who just sent Israel another $14.5 billion. And he has the gall to come before us and do a fundraiser asking for more money. Sounds like a party to me. Shut up. I'm so sick of you people.
Now, his ability or his the accomplishment of being able to raise 25 or 26 million dollars in a single day literally is on the backs of Hollywood. That's literally it. That's literally how he was able to come here. And of course, Wall Street and all the regulars, but the ones that wanted to get the picture were all the Hollywood people. Get their pictures with the three warmongers. That's what happened. But anyway, thanks for the clip from Midwestern Marx. I thought it was a pretty cool clip. I wanted to make sure I played. Let's get back to the presentation. I think I was here, with the Nina Turner chiming in here. Let's get to the next part of this. And now we get to this second clip from Democracy Now! This is another great clip from one of the activists. She gives a great, wouldn't call it speech, but she gives a great interview here and says a lot of great things here.
New Yorker, which is supposedly a progressive and democratic city, but we're out here because this genocide and the 75-year-old Nakba is bipartisan. And these Democrats are not going to save us. And this is not something that started on October 7th. Joe Biden's complicity did not start on October 7th. Obama has bombed our people and starved and displaced our people. Clinton has bombed, starved, and displaced our people. So we're here to take a stand against this entire damn system. What Biden needs to realize and remember is that American exceptionalism does not fly in the Muslim community. Over our brothers and sisters that are dying right now. What's happening in Gaza right now is worse than any travel ban. And you can't scare us with the prospect of a Trump presidency. We've lived through one.
We're here today.
You can't scare us with a Trump presidency. We lived through one. Love that. Like it's literally the same policy. And Trump is going to have a potty mouth and say a bunch of racist shit in public. But you do the same racist policy behind doors. Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Obama, Bill Clinton. That's what's crazy. But let me let the clip continue before I talk too much here.
Because there are three of the most notorious criminals, three of the most violent masters of head of the U.S. war machine, including Joe Biden, but also Obama and Bill Clinton, who had the audacity to come to New York City and fundraise while Biden is actively supporting a genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And we know also very well that this is just one extension of the U.S.'s long complicity in the settler colonial state. The U.S. does whatever it can militarily, financially, politically to ensure that it maintains a hegemony in the world. And the Middle East is particularly important to the U.S. because of its resources. The U.S. supported the creation of Israel because it wanted white people, mostly Europeans, in the Middle East, to destabilize the Middle East, to ensure that there was never pan-Arab unity. I just got back from international travel, including in Palestine from September to December. I was in the West Bank, between the West Bank and Jerusalem. So many of my friends since I left in December have been kidnapped in their homes by the Israeli military and indefinitely detained. No charges, no trial.
Currently, we are working on the Leave It Blank New York campaign for the upcoming primary happening April 2nd on Tuesday.
Okay, so they kind of go into a little bit of a different part here that we're not going to present in this segment. So now let's go to another article now, which is the protest. And then we got a couple of more things and we should be out of here soon. But here's the headline here. Pro-Palestinian protests disrupt Biden's $1 million fundraiser. I believe this one is from the Left Voice. If you know what the left, it's just leftvoice.org or leftvoice.com. You can find this article title. And I've already read it and I took out the snippet I want for this segment and I'll read it along here on the side if you would like to read along. Those who mobilize to protest the event can see through the recent shifts in the Biden administration rhetoric around the genocide, meaning the people on the streets, they know your rhetoric is bullshit. They know your building a port on the shore of Gaza is bullshit. They know your UN resolution that was voted down by China and Russia was bullshit. They know you're abstaining on this latest resolution that finally passed is bullshit. They know the PR stunt to pretend that you and Netanyahu are fighting is bullshit. You're not fooling anybody with these narratives. At least not the people who are out in the streets. Recently, Biden and the Democrats have changed their tack and began to bring more criticism on the military assault in Gaza and the Israeli government. The widespread opposition to the genocide, increased calls for ceasefire at home, and Biden's low poll numbers ahead of the election have forced Biden and other Democrats to take up some rhetorical support of a limited ceasefire, a proposal that does not even include an immediate and permanent withdrawal of all Israeli troops and an end to the siege of Gaza. Then, on Tuesday, the U.S. Abstained from the recent ceasefire resolution vote made at the UN Special Council. But those shifts, and we're talking about these rhetorical shifts, are cynical attempts to give rhetorical concessions to the movement for Palestine in order to bolster Biden's re-election chances. Basically confuse and lie to workers, to pretend as if you're doing something while you're shipping them secret weapon cells, while you're saying in the same breath that Israel has a right to defend itself, and I'm never going to go away from Israel and supplying weapons. But those shifts are cynical attempts to give rhetorical concessions to the movement for Palestine in order to bolster Biden's re-election chances. The protesters who mobilized in New York City weren't fooled by those shifts and we shouldn't be either. Along with Biden, former President Obama and Clinton are both longstanding supporters of Israel who have sent billions of dollars to sustain the colonial state. Each hold their own blood-soaked legacies of imperialist military intervention abroad. Obama expanded the use of drones in the U.S. military, carrying out over 500 drone strikes in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen during his 2 terms, while supporting the Saudi monarch in its relentless bombing of Yemen. That's Obama, the guy who was telling you, you guys need to listen to. Why? You see your record, bro? What do we need to listen to a war criminal for? Explain more war criminal shit. We don't. Don't buy into the fake civility so they can prop up the same status quo and convince you and confuse you. I continue here. Clinton, on top of singing the 1993 or signing the 1993 Oslo Accord that dashed prospects for Palestinian self-determination, led bloody military interventions in Somalia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Haiti, and Kosovo. After 5 months of protests, the forces of the Democratic Party and their allies are mobilizing to try to co-opt and quell the movement, much like they did in 2020 with Black Lives Matter. This is their attempt. This is why Obama's here. This is why Obama is saying you need to listen. 2, listen to me, put you to sleep with my trance. Listen to me, put you into a trance. I mean, that's basically what Obama wants to do. While it is urgent that we double down our efforts to massify the movement in the streets, schools, and universities, we also need to expand our resistance to the genocide with working class methods of struggle that include disruptive work actions and larger demonstrations and strikes to force the regimes to end all military and economic aid to Israel. In imperialist countries like the US, which are playing a key role in sustaining Israel to maintain their strategic interest in the Middle East, these efforts, along with the Palestinian people and Jewish workers who reject Zionism, are crucial. We defend the right to self-determination of Palestinian people and fight for a workers' and socialist Palestine. This is from leftvoice.org. Leftvoice.org, if you want to go research this headline here. Now, we're going to go to a couple of more videos here. Let me show you this. This is the money that Joe Biden, and this is the AIPAC tracker, has been tracking the money that all of these representatives have been taking from Israel. And this is what for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, President of the United States, almost $6 million received from pro-Israel interest. Despite a widening rift with the Israeli government, the Biden administration continues to authorize the transfer of 2,000-pound bombs and other weapons. This is according to the Washington Post. And for those listening, the exact number is $5,736,701. That's Biden. All right, so let's go back now to YouTube TV, because I want to now continue with the unhinged conservative on Fox News before I close with the clip from MSNBC and Joyanne Reid. Let's go back to this conservative reaction here, and let's play it.
From Gaza. That would have gotten huge applause. That would have done more for him politically than pandering to these pro-Hamas terrorist sympathizers that on the radical left.
A new Fox News poll finds that in the conflict between Israel and Hamas, Mark, voters back the Israelis by a 31-point margin. But the recent drop in support, and it's been a significant.
Yeah, and it's been a significant drop that she's referring to here, because you might look at this poll and be like, wow, 59%, that's a lot. That's about almost 30 points down from what it was pre-October 7th. So it's a significant drop in support. And understand it's this high because of the propaganda. It's this high because of and I'll just leave it there, because of the propaganda, because I was going to say a different category, but it falls under propaganda too. So no need to separate. Let's just keep it under propaganda.
Significant drop in support is driven by liberals, Democrat
Let me back it up 15 seconds, because that last part
voters
is
back
important.
the Israelis by a 31-point margin. But the recent drop in support, and it's been a significant drop in support, is driven by liberals, Democrat voters under the age of 35, and women. The number of Republicans, conservatives, and white evangelicals backing Israel has mostly held steady. This is just troubling from a humanitarian standpoint, that people are not standing against terrorism in a way.
Yeah, I think that there have been other polls showing more support for Israel, but there was a Harris poll that came out, Harvard Harris poll of Mark Penn, who's on our air a lot, that 77% think Hamas should be removed from Gaza. 67% hold Hamas responsible for creating the conflict. 63% support a ceasefire only after Hamas is removed and all the hostages are returned. And 66% believe that Israel is trying to avoid civilian casualties. The vast majority of Americans stand with Israel. The vast majority of Americans, they're sympathetic to the Palestinian civilians, but they are not sympathetic to Hamas. And Joe Biden is making a huge strategic blunder by pandering to this small minority of people who support Hamas, who are protesting. You know, Arab American voters make up about 5% of the electorate in Michigan, which is what he's concerned about. He should be more concerned about the rest of the electorate who sees him as weak. The voters who only 34% of Americans support his policy on Israel. That's the only issue that he has lower approval on is immigration. And that's saying something. Right. So
it's weird that he points out that he shouldn't listen to this fringe group, and then he points out the fact that his approval rating is low, as if it's low because he's not going harder at support. It's low because of the current stands. And I'm not sure what poll this guy is referring to, but let's bring up a couple of headline receipts here to disprove what he's saying about people not supporting a ceasefire and the support that Israel is getting. I'll just scroll through I'll scroll through all of these here. Here's a common dream. Given these numbers, I don't know how President Biden can reconcile his stalwart support for Israel with the clear preference that his core constituency have for an end to this war. And the headline is support for Israel's war on Gaza plummeting among key Biden voters. Let's continue. The headlines continue. Here goes another poll. Pew poll. Americans more supportive of human aid to Gaza than military aid to Israel. So what is he talking about supporting? Here's the breakdown. Americans more supportive of humanitarian aid to Gaza than to Israel. Humanitarian aid to help Palestinians strongly favor is at 28%. Aid to Israel is at 17% as far as strongly. But then you add all of these up. You can add all of these up. Then you say somewhat, what is this? Somewhat favor, 22% and 28%. So we're at what, 50%? 19% and 17%. What is that? 36%. So you see the difference. So I'm not sure where he's getting his polls. Here's another poll here. Majority of Americans disapprove of Israel's military actions in Gaza. A new poll from Gallup has found that the majority of Americans disapprove of Israel's military action in Gaza, which has killed over 32,000 Palestinians, including 13,000 children. And it goes on, but let me just show you the graphic here. Americans have shifted to disapproval of Israeli military action in Gaza. Do you approve of or disapprove of military action Israel has taken in Gaza? Disapprove is at 55%. Disapproval in November, right after it happened of last year, was at 45%. So it's gone up 10%. Approval has taken a decline of 14 points. It was 50% approval. So it's barely half in November. It's gone down to 36%. So not sure, again, what poll the guy on the screen is talking about, because that was a new video. It wasn't like an old video where he can refer to old polls, let's say back in November. Here's another headline from Middle East Eye. A recent Pew poll found that more young Americans have favorable views of Palestinians than of Israelis in the current war on Gaza, reaching 60 and 46% respectively. What is he talking about? Middle East Eye. 60% of Americans between the ages of 18 to 29 express favorable views of Palestinian people. So it's the same poll, but expressed differently, more clearly expressed, so you know which number goes to which, while 46% have favorable views of Israeli people. What is he talking about in the clip? Here's another one. According to the latest Gallup poll, 36% of Americans approve of Israel's actions in Gaza. Why is Biden so eager to support something that the majority of Americans are against? And it just goes on. And then you say, what about corporate news reports on it too? Here is ABC News reporting on a narrow majority of Americans, 55%, disapprove of military action Israel has taken in Gaza. Here's the Washington Post. Most Americans disapprove of Israel's war in Gaza. So again, the guy states something on TV that's clearly inaccurate. Nobody fact checks him, of course. And then they move on with the conversation with the false information. Now, I'm going to let this play just a little more because he does make a couple of more just ridiculous claims. Let's listen.
You know, I think he needs to be more concerned with the mainstream of this country that understands that Israel was attacked and that has a right to defend itself, than by pandering to these people who are not going to vote for him anyway because they're radical terrorist sympathizers.
I want to move on to
Radical
this in terms of alienating almost 90%.
So that was the last part
of
of that one. Now we're going to go to Inside Politics and get a short segment of something they said in Inside Politics. I got to go home. I'm not that well versed on maneuvering through YouTube TV, but I will try. All right, so let's go to Inside Politics. It should be here. And then, where are we here?
You're saying it's such a good point, and it's a nice segue to the.
Beautiful how she segues away from the great point that the lady was making. But let's go to 8:18. That's where I need to go for this video. So 1 second here. Right about there. Let's start here. And let's see if I have any notes written down for this part. Where is it? Inside Politics with Dana Bash. See what Obama and Clinton say to protesters. So Obama and Clinton say other things to protesters. So this is more of what Obama and Clinton said, not just the sharp retort that Obama had, but it's some other more palatable things they say in trying to confuse workers and people.
It's a gamble, which is why you're seeing the big investments like you're doing in Michigan this morning.
And, you know, it was really interesting to see not just President Biden give a response to those protesters, but his two Democratic predecessors. Barack Obama, who is seen by progressives as maybe more on their side, on
What?
Israel. And Bill
Nobody
Clinton,
sees
who
that,
tried
said that.
like almost to the last day of his presidency to actually find that two-state solution. I just want to read what each of the men said. Obama, when you look at a situation like we're seeing in Gaza and in Israel, and your heart breaks initially for a massacre of unbelievable cruelty, it is also possible for us to say we unequivocally support the people of Israel. Clinton, the world we live in is hard because you have to keep two apparently conflicting ideas in your head. You should trust them to work for it, to work to ease the suffering of the totally innocent Palestinian citizens and not to allow Israel's security to be lost. So to me, the way I saw that was as much about the substance of what they said and also a reminder of the fact that these are two amazing communicators. Amazing communicators.
Without a doubt. And another president can often explain for you better than you can yourself. We saw that with Bill Clinton, of course, in the Obama reelection. And I think we'll see it again in this reelection as well. But on those issues specifically, and when the event was interrupted by protesters, Barack Obama said something he has said repeatedly on a variety of issues.
Listen to
you can't
this.
just talk, you have to listen.
Mhm.
And he always became very frustrated, like when students in his class weren't listening. He sort of strikes that professorial tone. But I think the Bill Clinton words there are so important, perhaps to older voters who really recall him very fondly here. So I think those are also sort of leading the way to another conversation. What would Trump do? I mean, what would happen with...
This is a threat. Here's the threat. It's that, yes, we're supplying weapons, but Trump is going to supply weapons and ban Muslims. So vote for me, or you're going to get the extra banning Muslim part on top of the genocide. You'll never get out of the lesser of two evils if you can be convinced of that. And we're at the climax of the lesser of two evil argument, because we're talking about the lesser of two evil between genociders, and that's literally what he's presenting to you. What will Trump do? Is he going to be less of a genocider? No, he's going to go harder at genocide. So our choices are lesser of two genociders. That is what they're saying, quite literally, when they're talking, because he's saying, how is he going to be different on the policy? He's not. That's the point they're making.
Gaza if Trump was president. So I think that's a discussion that has been sort of left out of the broader conversation and the protests. Okay, this is the season for protesting.
Sure.
The fall is the season for voting. So we'll see what these protesters do.
I have to, speaking of Bill Clinton, this quote was also interesting. Here's what he said about 2016. He said, we should not make 2016's mistakes. We should stay with what works and not let people who try to undo it take credit for whatever. Now, what happened? Who ran in 2016?
2016. No, I would have said that if his wife was sitting on stage with him, former Secretary of State.
And by the way, I think he would say he, as one of her top surrogates, made some big mistakes.
Right, and I think that it also it shows how much 2016 continues to haunt this race.
Yeah.
Not only because Bill Clinton is sitting there.
That's why they're coming after third-party people.
Of 2016, that Democrats are worried that they have a blind spot, that they're not, that there's somewhere they're not going, that maybe there's some people they're failing to talk to. And that fear, I think, is going to continue, particularly as you see these poll numbers. If Biden's poll numbers don't move one way or the other.
That's so interesting. It's such a good point, and it's a nice segue to the last point.
Yeah, you see it. She bring up the poll numbers. It's a nice segue to get the fuck away from that conversation, and she pivots to something else there. But you see almost like the airhead type analysis you get on cable news that is always lacking a significant analysis that would benefit the worker, the average person.